Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Speed Street Podcast. I am not locked in a vehicle, so welcome
Congrats.
back. Not locked in a vehicle, locked out of my house last week. I apologize for that. So I went really big this week, made sure I have the ring light, made sure I had a microphone, made sure I feel very good sitting at home. I've got coffee. Everything is correct. So thank you for dealing with that. Honestly, loved that conversation with Dario last weekend too. Dario Franchitti. We appreciate him being on the show. If you haven't checked that one out yet, please do. Really great conversation. Lots going on. Actually, not really. There's not a lot going on in the IndyCar world. Everything is almost done. NASCAR is over. Big debate from the NASCAR weekend. There's a lot going on, and I will actually talk a little bit about it. I'm sure some people will be like, I don't want to listen to that, but I don't know.
Oh, no.
We're learning. We're going to learn more about some motorsport, but we also have some IndyCar stuff to talk about, so don't shut off the television yet. Don't shut off the podcast yet. We also have a great interview with Parker Kligerman. Sorry. He got mad at me for pronouncing his name wrong. I pronounced it like Dale Earnhardt Jr. Our boss pronounced it, I guess, Kligerman. There is no N before the G. So just everyone know that. Parker Kligerman is a fantastic conversation. He is someone who started in the open wheel ranks, ended up in the NASCAR world, ended up on television quite often. And he's very good on television, very good at driving. So he has called it quits on his full-time racing career. He will probably obviously dabble a little bit here and there on with a few other things, but he's got a great mind for the sport. He understands it at a very high level, I believe. And he tells us how we're going to fix IndyCar, which we would love to do. So again, I believe that IndyCar is on a great trajectory, but boy, do we still got a lot of work to do. So that's a discussion ahead. But, to talk about IndyCar news first, we've got some testing that's going on and some social media videos that are popping up that people are very excited about. We see Logan Sargent for the first time in a race suit. He's wearing Felix Rosenquist's suit, which is kind of funny. But you see him doing a seat fit. People, the MSR team, are doing some nice little social clips about the seat fit there. Smart of them, because he was an F1 driver, big following, a lot of engagement. F1 Twitter, a certain portion of F1 Twitter going bananas about seeing Logan back in a race suit, which is great. Very excited to see how that goes. It is wild, though, because it's kind of like it's a test at thermal, and you have guys like, we mentioned this, but Enzo Fittipaldi, you've got Logan Sargent, you've got some rookies, Louis Foster is going to be there. We actually did also confirm that Louis Foster, and I don't know if it's Louis or Lewis, but we're going to go with Lewis and Louis. Double L Foster is going to be with us for next week's show. So Indy NXT champion, need to get him on, and now an IndyCar driver. So very excited to chat with him. I think that's going to be a good conversation for everyone. But yeah, it's kind of a weird test. It's like not real. It's kind of just like an exhibition. It's like a fun day for people that we don't normally see in an IndyCar. And the rest of us, and me not included because I'm not a driver currently, I don't think there's really any testing for a long time. So there's really not much for us to pay attention to. So this is big. IndyCar's got to put out as much content as they can, because I have a lot to say about the current state of where we're at, Chase. And I know I haven't let you jump in here yet, but I have a lot that I want to say about what I'm seeing going on in our lack of news, but sort of some news, but some things like that. But before we get into that, Chase, have you noticed maybe like, hey, where did all the IndyCar drivers go on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lack of presence, especially with all of the drama in NASCAR right now. F1 is still in their season. They've got a couple more races left. So I did see Pato in front of a kitchen cabinet. He's been doing well, posting his photos, random things, park benches, kitchen cabinets, double chin photos.
That's being a superstar.
Underneath.
That's being a superstar, yeah.
That's Pato, dude. David Malukas.
Not many words as a caption. Not many words as a caption and a couple seductive faces, and that means you're a superstar.
He knows. Yeah, he knows exactly what he's
it.
doing. He knows what he's doing, dude. He knows what a pato is.
Yep.
So from there, David Malukas, he's been doing, a couple things here and there.
Good content.
His little skeleton videos have been great. That right there, I could easily see, him selling skeletons at the track next year. Maybe that's something that he could do. I gave him some advice. I gave him some business advice right there. So aside from that, though, I do think that it would be cool to see lifestyle stuff from IndyCar drivers. Like, everyone's been talking about Valtteri Bottas, about like now that he's out of F1. Like, and he's posted all this stuff about him just doing marathons and Ironmans and all this stuff. And it's like, I feel like all the IndyCar fans have just been in his comments. Just come to IndyCar. It's time. Look at this guy. How do we not have this guy in a seat? So, there's definitely chatter from the fans. The fans are doing their part. They're making the chatter in the comments from different people, but it would be cool to see, what the lives of these IndyCar drivers are during these off-season months. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about something because I guess I'm not upset about it, but it does seem like a lot of our drivers, if not 80% of the field, have completely disappeared from the internet world, which, again, that's fine because it is our off season, right? We are not paid to post on the internet. I mean, a lot of people are, like, you can be, but it's kind of sad that, when you're an IndyCar driver, your main job, every part of your focus is to be the best driver you can be, to be the best ambassador for the sport that you can be, and perform at the highest level on the track. Now, does that involve posting on social media? Absolutely not. But kind of in this era, I do believe that it does, unless you're. I don't know. I mean, even Scott Dixon is like posting at a great rugby match in New Zealand. I've seen more on Scott Dixon's Instagram, and he's almost 50, than I've seen on, Kyle Kirkwood's Instagram, Cole Nerda's Instagram, like half the field. And this is nothing against my friends, because, like, I know, honestly, it's probably safer to be off the internet than on the internet. But it's just something that I just find to be a bit odd, because we have so much downtime, and our sport almost just disappears from relevancy. Now, I will completely agree that IndyCar is doing a great job. They're trying to put up some clips, maybe put up some photographs. They even put up a photo of me today with just a tweet that I put out. So that must means that we're really bored. But, IndyCar is doing their job. But a lot of us as drivers, it's almost like there's, a lot of the drivers' accounts are just basically machines, right? We show up to the race weekend, we post about the race, and that's it, and we go away. And it's okay. I'm not upset about that strategy, because during the season, you're like, yeah, I get it. But there's just something I believe that I think even NASCAR drivers, Formula One drivers, their off seasons are much shorter. But I think you kind of see them more. And again, I'm going to do some research this off season because I'm unemployed. So I'm going to do some research this off season and just kind of see, hey, who kind of stays out in the limelight? Who kind of puts some things out there just for the fans to talk about? Because as, race fans, I'm craving something all the time. I'm still trying to refresh Twitter and understand, hey, what else is there that I can find out about motorsport today? And thankfully, there's been some NASCAR, Formula One stuff. Formula One race was fantastic at Brazil. But I wish there was a little bit more conversation, a little bit more, hey, name random driver. Like, I like what David Malukas is doing. You know what? Kind of silly, kind of fun, boom. But we see something. The Andretti drivers, not a lot going on there. But again, that's not really their style, so that's completely fine. Thankfully, Marcus Ericsson posted on Halloween. Great post from him on Halloween. But, it's just kind of one of those things that this is very much a question. Like, do you guys see the same thing? Do you think there's kind of some drivers that have maybe, just kind of disappeared and that's it? I don't know, Chase, I mean, what do you think? Do you think as drivers in this sport where we have partners and sponsors and people that support us, fans that want to support us throughout our whole lives, essentially our whole careers, the fans that show up to buy the merch, they'd love to probably see what's going on. Do you agree?
I 100% agree. And I mean, what I'm going to say here, some people may not like it, but I mean, I almost think that when you join a team as a driver, the team should have something in that contract where you should be kind of, held accountable to continue the team and your own personal brand throughout a season, because the teams too, I do see teams posting things here and there. They do teams have social media teams.
Those people are paid to be there, though. That's the thing. So the teams are paid to, they have people that are employed to do social media, which again,
right, 100%.
But that's important. And I'm not saying the drivers have to pay a bunch of people to post on social media, but it's really not. It's not that difficult to just be like, hey, I'm going to put something up for the people to enjoy.
Because I just think if you want the better of the sport, like it should be something that teams look to talk to their drivers about and say, just give them an understanding of why it is important. Now, I totally get like maybe not every driver wants to pay to have a personal social media person. I get that.
No, and I would never do that. Yeah. I don't think anyone wants to do that. But
there are a lot of drivers that do that. There are a lot of drivers in NASCAR, Formula One. They all have those people that manage that for them and run that for them if they don't want to do it. Sure. I mean, we just heard Kyle Larson. He deleted X. He's not really worried about it, but there's still posts going up and there's still other things. And that's just because we do live in this world. Like you said, Connor, we live in this world now where relevancy, it's the easiest way to stay relevant, and it's the easiest way to basically have a billboard 24/7. Of who you are, what you're doing, and what you do. And that not only elevates your own personal brand, but elevates your team and elevates the series that your team and yourself operate within. So I do think it should be something that maybe the teams look to just talk to their drivers about going into 2025, especially with the momentum that we're probably about to have. You don't want to lose that momentum. And everybody's just got to find a way to come together and work together for the greater good if we truly want to see this series be all that it can be.
Yeah, I mean, we've always said it's going to take all of us, right? It's going to take some work. It's going to take some effort. And, we might not want to do it. Like, life is hard. Life is not easy. Like IndyCar isn't just going to be successful because they trip over it, right?
But everyone in 3 years, when you shining big like Pato, you're going to be happy you put the groundwork in. That's all I'm going to say.
We need 15 Patos. Yeah, like we need 15 Patos, with that much of a social media following. And I believe that you can't get there if you don't do anything. You know what I mean? Now, Pato he's very successful. He's got a lot of fans and he's got a lot of personality, so he does want to post. And a lot of drivers honestly don't. I will be completely honest with you. So many of us, even myself included, with the way social media is now, there's so much negativity. And again, there's a lot of great, positive folks out there too. And we never want to discredit them. But sadly, the louder voices are always the people who are angry or willing to throw insults at it. So, if you don't have to, if you don't get paid to do that, why would you ever show up there? You know what I mean? So it's something that, again, we don't have to do it. And even myself, like I just mentioned, I kind of don't want to be on there, but I know that this is part of my job. I'm enjoying being mostly a part of it, but a lot of me is like, shoot, if I actually was successful enough to not do social media, I'd probably not do it. But I'm not successful enough, so I'm going to keep driving IndyCar to be successful enough to where it's less of a question of like, hey, we got to stay relevant, we got to stay in the news, we got to give our fans something to consume, and that might sound weird to say, but right now we work on trying to put something out there that the IndyCar fans can consume because we appreciate them. And we need you guys. We need everyone. We need everyone to support this series and to support the drivers. Doesn't matter who your favorite driver is. It could be Stingray Robb might be your favorite driver. Could be Kiffin Simpson. I don't care. It could be Santino Ferrucci. We might question your morals. Just kidding. Talented driver, remember.
Talented driver.
But we need all of those drivers, any of those drivers, to gain more support so that as a whole, the sport is continually more respected, continually growing, and it doesn't become as hard for us to just maintain relevancy. So again, I just kind of wanted to say something because I even put down in my notes, I was like, where is everyone? I was like, it kind of seems like it's not Christmas or Thanksgiving yet, but it's just kind of funny. And
it was just time for a roll call. It was time for the roll call.
There's no testing that's going on, which is, again, a sad thing for IndyCar. Like, if the Indy 500 test, right, the test a couple weeks ago, that was awesome for everyone to see. There were some results pages to overreact to. There were some pictures of vehicles that looked cool. And obviously, we're going to have some stuff go on at the thermal test, which is going to be great. Very excited that we're going to have something to talk about from there. But yeah, kind of wild, the position that we're in now. So I want to get to NASCAR really quick before I get to a couple other things that I think would be worth mentioning from the IndyCar world. Real quick on NASCAR. Chase, and I know you have a lot of thoughts on this too. A lot of debate about the playoff system. Now, I see the argument for both sides, of course. In motorsport, and Parker Kligerman actually makes a great point in our discussion that I will let you listen to that to hear what he has to say about it. But what NASCAR has done, they've fully embraced the entertainment side of the sport. They need to be entertainment. They understand that. You have to keep people entertained. There's a lot of racing purists that are like, oh no, Joey Logano won the championship, but his average finish was this. His total points was this. Like, I completely understand that too, right? Because if I'm Kyle Larson, I'm hating everything about what happened to him, right? I can't even believe Kyle Larson wasn't in the Final Four. But it gives you the debate to talk about. There is a lot of chatter about the racing, and I know there's going to be probably some people that agree with this, some people that don't. But, there were a lot of people that were comparing it to like the NCAA championship, right? What if you're a number 1 seed and you lose to the number 16 seed, which, it never happened. Well, now it's happened. You know what I mean? There's teams that put in work all year long to get to the NCAA championship. You might lose in the first or second round. Now, I understand that that's hard to compare, but when I saw that comparison, I was like, that completely makes sense. Like, that's part of the game. You got to play well all the time. Sometimes it won't work out. And so I still am I'm not going to say that I'm a huge fan of the way the playoff system works, but I do believe that there is an element that will never make the racing purists happy. Like, hey, we're going to watch all the strategies. We're going to see all the points scored, and may the best person win at the end of the year because you've done the best all year long. I get that. But we as a sport, I believe in motorsport right now, we're competing against so many other sports that are very entertaining, as Parker mentions later, very clip-friendly. And I think, and there's a lot of ratings chatter. Like I just saw the ratings for Phoenix, not a huge number, but not a bad number, right? Like NASCAR said that they were up 1% overall in the year. I hate to say it, but that's still up. You know what I mean? So you're competing against football, you're competing against all these things, and you're still getting a lot of viewership. So there's something about it that works. No one's ever going to be happy with it, but in racing, no one's ever happy about anything. I mean, honestly. So, as a unified group, so I actually don't mind the debate that it causes. I really don't. I think that I completely understand the folks that are like, "Hey, Joey Logano shouldn't have won that championship." But man, on the day, like, he did the job, right? Like, he did the job. And so I see the argument. I really do. And I'm not going to side on either one right now because, again, I'm not going to say, the playoffs are the best, because maybe there is something that you can do to it. But I think for generating entertainment and generating just this need to continue to encapsulate fans, I actually do like the stages. I do, because you could have some races that are 400 miles, and for 390 of those miles, nothing happens, honestly. So I do like the stages, and I've been in these races to experience stages, and I don't mind it at all. So, yeah, Chase, what do you think?
There's a lot to it. A lot of what you said, I think that the majority of people listening are going to agree with that. And I've taken a lot of time over the last week to really try to not just give like kind of a goofy or silly opinion about it all, but to try to really formulate like a real concrete opinion. And the only thing I keep coming back to is a lot of what you're talking about. It was entertainment. A lot of the things that we're going to talk to Parker about. And what I've kind of realized and seen over the last 3 years, especially when I was, going to a lot of races and I was in the media centers around a lot of the people that their minds are what's kind of creating this product. I'm starting to see just from the outside this year that maybe what we're seeing is NASCAR is finding ways to stay in people's minds. This situation that has happened is going to carry through the off season because it is a huge change that can happen. And so what that means is that maybe NASCAR is in a bit of clean and replenish. They are in a space right now where they've realized we have an opportunity to maybe get rid of some of these older fans, but accumulate a ton of new stick and ball fans just because of the conversations that are going on.
We don't want to get rid of any fans, though. We
you don't want to, but let me just say here that we are entering into a new age, and there are a lot of people that are calling for the Winston Cup points to come back. As much as I think that would be great for a purist standpoint, the things that NASCAR is doing right now is what is keeping them relevant. If none of this was happening, there would not be a lot. We'd be talking about IndyCar and NASCAR maybe not having so much to talk about. So
if there was no change, if there was no change in how NASCAR did things over the last 10 years, I don't think we actually give NASCAR enough credit for staying relevant. I really don't. I think because of all the changes, because of all the arguments, I do believe that there's been some great stuff. I believe there's been some stupid stuff. I mean, they're in a lawsuit right now with two of their teams. I mean, it's crazy.
But, people are
believe
thirsty
that they've
for change,
stayed relevant.
Connor. That's really all it is people are thirsty for change. And what we're seeing right now is the Michael Jordan effect obviously was huge. And now with him being involved in this legal suit, that is gigantic for the sport. And then you've got all this controversy. So we're really starting to see this battle between a series and the fans is what's really shaping up right now. And that's where we're at. We're in the midst of this battle between them and the executive board people. They all know what they're doing is working because you're continuously talking. All of the negative stuff is going to rise higher than the positive stuff online. So that's why you see nothing but negative on top of positive, because negative gets more reaction than positive. And that's just the law of the universe. That's just what we've seen
as usual,
in humans in society.
Yeah, and as usual, if you're for it, people are going to attack you, right? So a lot of people that are actually okay with it probably are not going to say anything about it because they're going to get attacked by some very aggressive Twitter account, which is fine. Again, that's fine. Everyone's allowed to have their thoughts, right? We're in a free world, so that's great. But I believe that NASCAR deserves a lot of credit for staying relevant, for keeping. I mean, when you think about how much 2.5 million people is against the NFL on a Sunday, I mean, I was even flipping back and forth between NFL Red Zone and the Phoenix race because I'm still, I love football, so I'm going to watch both. But man, it's pretty outstanding to get that many viewers and if the playoffs were really bad for the system, and again, this might be controversial, but if the playoffs were really bad, I think you'd see a huge drop in viewership. But someone can probably debate this, and you can give me some numbers. But I just saw numbers of hey, NASCAR was up 1% on the year. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't seem bad, right? I assume that was from Adam Stern, who again, some people have some problems with the Stern bombs, but it's something that NASCAR finished the 2024 season averaging 2.8 million viewers per event, up 1% from last year. Do you guys realize how many people that is? I mean, we don't even want to tell the average of the IndyCar viewership. It's not that. And so it's something that I believe, is working for them. And again, feel free to debate us. Like, that's cool. Everyone dies on the hill of their opinion these days. There's not a lot of conversation. And I love conversation. If we could all just not attack each other and have a conversation about something, that's quite mature. But that probably won't happen. Anyway, that's our NASCAR talk for the day. There is some quote stuff from IndyCar that we're going to get to. And again, I hope you haven't shut off the show, because this is, I think, something that will excite you. But my teammate, Romain Grosjean, had some things to say. He was interviewed recently by Racer Magazine, and he had a quote, and even David Land, a friend of ours, did a video about this, because there's not a lot of IndyCar news recently. So when someone drops some fire quotes, you got to react to it. And Romain is very honest. He's very cut and dry. He'll tell you how it is. And I'm going to read this quote, and I'm going to tell you what So Grosjean said, quote, "It's all budget. So right now I've got nothing lined up. It is what it is. I think last year was probably one of my best seasons, and I may end up not being on the grid next year. Just because the marketing has been horrendous for IndyCar, the hybrid has brought the cost to a level that's unbearable for teams, and that's the way it is." So that was a quote from an article on Racer Magazine that was basically talking about what the what the prospects were for Grosjean, because again, he had a great season for the most part. Several top tens, some great qualifying efforts. I obviously, got the best finish for the team that they've ever had. But up until that point, Grosjean had a best finish of fourth for the team, and was very good in qualifying. But he's right. I mean, not all of it, but the budgets right now are very high. They are incrementally larger than when I started in this sport, which is before Grosjean got here. And it is because of how competitive our sport is, right? Like, if you want to compete, you got to spend money. Sorry, that's just racing science. That's it. But with the hybrid and with the way things are, development wise, everyone, you got to go to the gearbox dyno, you got to go to the wind tunnel, you got to go to the 7-post rig, you got to go to all these places because you can't actually test. So all the testing budget has been basically thrown into every other area of development, simulation technology, all this stuff, because we all want to compete. But he has a point, because there is a lack of sponsorship in our community, and it is concerning. I would say it is concerning. I'm in the same boat. Like, we both need to get budget if we are going to show up at JHR's door, and I am trying every single day. I literally have 2 calls this afternoon. This week might be the most important week for my entire career, if I'm actually going to be an IndyCar driver or not. And it's only going to come. He's exactly right. It doesn't matter how well he's done. It doesn't matter how well I've done. Someone has to pay for it. And it used to be a day where drivers who had some results, who did well, there are obviously still drivers who are getting hired. But, if we lose passionate folks, like, we can't lose a guy like Dan Towers from Gamebridge. We cannot lose him, because, that guy is essentially funding 3 race cars on the grid because he loves the sport. He sees the business of the sport. He thinks it's a good investment, which I respect, and keeping those guys afloat, right? So I think it's so hard nowadays to find money, because it's so much money. It's very easy to sell the Indy 500, because guess what? The Indy 500 is our largest viewed event. If you're trying to find $1.5 million for the Indy 500, I feel like I've been able to do that every year, and I am not. This is not my job, but we've been able to do it, and it's sellable. But the problem is, you're talking, it's no less than $10 million a year to run a car at the front of the grid. It's got to be $9 to $10 million, or else you're probably not spending enough. And that's a large amount of money for 17 races on network television. We hope that's great, but you can't really guarantee anything. So, I don't believe that the marketing is terrible. I think that might have been more of an emotional comment because the marketing, we all have problems with the way everything's been marketed, but I believe we're going the right direction, but it doesn't happen overnight. You know what could fix that, though,
Connor? You know what could fix that? Having something put into a deal with these drivers where they look at their social media followings and find out how they can do cross-marketing. That right there could be something that could help.
Maybe. Yeah, the drivers can do more work for sure, but, we would like it to not be on us, but I believe, as we've said, it's going to take all of us, right? So anyway, that was a very powerful quote, and I really hope, we do have a very competitive field, even with a couple drivers that for sure we just know are there to fund the field. Stingray says he's got an announcement coming up this week, and Stingray doing it on Wednesday, hey, that's when this show comes out, so we have no idea what he's going to say, but I assume Stingray is going to be somewhere. We've heard now that Devlin DeFrancesco might be back in the running for the Ray Hall seat. That's a rumor. Again, those are guys that just bring money. There's no results anywhere to back up anything. Nice kids, right? I don't like the way that, I've been raced by Devlin. Stingray's never done anything to me. It's just, I just say that out of pure jealousy for him. He's a nice fella. Couldn't be a nicer young man. But we're talking about the top level of American motor racing, essentially. You know what I mean? The top level of American open wheel motor racing. And, you just like to see, if Stingray and Devlin are in cars and Kiffin over Linus Lundqvist and, Romain Grosjean, it seems like a broken system. But that's how it is currently. So I'm very curious to see how it plays out. We're busting our butts, and I believe that there's a lot of people that are excited to support me. I need time, definitely need time. And, I would love it if Grosjean was my teammate next year because I think he pushes me so much on the road courses. He's very skilled, but you know what? Time will tell. So I don't know what's going to happen yet. We are not there yet. We definitely need the budget that he mentioned, and it is hard to sell. It is hard to sell. So we're going to make it better to sell, though. We're going to do that. I hope. What do you think, Chase? Should we get to Parker?
It's been a while since we've talked to Parker, since I've personally talked to Parker. I would love to get to the Parker interview, chat a little bit about some open wheel, some NASCAR, just everything going on in motorsports.
I agree. Real quick before that, one other fun, we're going to a couple fun comments, but it's got to be so cool. And I don't know why I'm saying this to my podcast viewership, but I was watching the NASCAR race. It's got to be cool that Michael Jordan comes up to you and says hey, great job, man. I literally put in my notes, Tyler Reddick, Michael Jordan. It's so cool as a driver. We're in this small world of life where we've grown up in these race cars, and you're racing at a low level, isn't really paid attention to at all, and you're trying to make it. And as kids, we've all seen Michael Jordan playing ball and being probably one of the most famous athletes on the entire planet. And MJ's just coming up hey, good job, dogs, and he's saying congrats to Ryan Blaney. What a cool thing that NASCAR has that I'm just very jealous of. And anyway, we
have David Letterman, man. Come on. Yeah, Letterman.
We got David Letterman, though. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We do have David Letterman. He's a great man as well. But yeah, it was just something funny that I commented on. And the NASCAR championship battle was an interesting one over the weekend. Very happy for Justin Allgaier as well. Really like Justin Allgaier. He's always been
the Gator.
Very, very cool to me. He's been very helpful to me anytime. When I got in the Xfinity car at Indy, he was very helpful and good to race with too. He was definitely fun to race with, and NASCAR's over. So we have only one series remaining. We have the Formula One World Championship. I will be at the Las Vegas Grand Prix next weekend commentating. But before we get to talking about that, let's go into a great interview with Parker Kligerman, the driver of the number 48 for the last couple of years, the Big Machine Racing car, spiked seltzers, very bright orange and white machine. Parker Kligerman tells us how to fix all of motorsport and about his life. Folks, this week we are very lucky to have someone who helped me out because I texted him at the very last minute. I had some other messages floating out. And again, this is not to take away from the magnitude of the guest that we have, because I believe he's a very special human, a man who has done very well in his career in the NASCAR ranks, a man who has driven some open wheel cars every now and then, maybe dipped his toes in the water, and a man who is very good on television. You hear his voice, you see his face, he talks to the public about how you can better understand racing, and he was driving the number 48, the spiked coolers Chevrolet all year long in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Parker Kligerman, we appreciate you being here. I'm still calling you the race winner at the Roval. So
thank you.
How are we feeling?
Well, appreciate it. I mean, the way you put that together, that intro, it does make me feel like I'm back at the Roval again, because you basically like, hey, there's all these other people we care about more. But you know what? We'll just let you get close enough, Parker, that you feel like you might be the winner. You're not. I also,
podcasts are hard, dude. You get it,
dude. Everyone's got one.
Yeah,
everyone's got one. I mean, you got to.
You're a champion.
This is
here.
like the
you
Spider-Man
can be a champion
meme.
Here.
Chase, I appreciate that. I'd say it's like the Spider-Man meme where it's like, hey, you got a pod, I got a pod. You want to come on my podcast, and I'll go on your podcast, and then we'll just go back and forth here. So I really appreciate though being on Speed Street. This is an honor, and I can tell you've been indoctrinated into Dirty Mo Media because you said Kligerman, which is how Dale Earnhardt Jr. says my name, and I always tell him in that case there's no N before the G. It's Kligerman.
I don't care.
Well, no. Therefore, I always tell him he's Earhart. Because he takes the N and he puts it in my name. So it's, all right. I can tell you guys are close.
Parker K, that's what we're going to call you from now on.
It's PK.
That's our guy.
It's PK.
Look, Parker, despite how anyone pronounces your last name, very successful career, and honestly, brave to just come out as still a young man and be like, you know what, I'm done. I'm actually just going to go to television. Because I think you've been through the ringer in this sport. I mean, you were with the Penske organization at one point, right? Like, I mean, This is a man who made it to the Cup Series and then was up and down. And I kind of feel like we've had not similar career arcs, but like we've been in there and then we've been shoved out of it. And then you come back into it and you have success and you're like, well, I guess I still know what I'm doing, but actually now I'm kind of tired of this baloney. So kind of give us a look back at what you think after this lifestyle that you've lived.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know it, and you said it well. Like, we both have been in and out of this deal and have had to fight from the fringes into the inside, and then get to a good place, and then it maybe doesn't go as well as you hope, that sort of thing, and then you're fighting back, and you're always working deals, as you know, in this time of the season especially. And for me, getting back full-time at Big Machine Racing was a huge achievement because it did take a massive effort, and it took everything I had each and every year. And there was, this feeling, there was every single off season that I didn't have a full-time ride. I had 3 or 4 conversations going right as we got to November. And it was always like one foot from the finish line, and then it would fall apart or something would happen. And so but I never stopped, right? And getting back, it was like, okay, cool, it happened. Let's keep this trajectory going. And then for whatever reason, midway through this year, I just sort of had this moment where I felt like, do I want to keep sacrificing and chasing this thing? And I was looking at a big lifestyle change in terms of, I primarily have lived in Connecticut through most of this time because that's where NBC Sports was. That's where I'm from. And my family's up there, my girlfriend. But doing this last 2 years, I've had an apartment down North Carolina. I've had 2 apartments basically, going back and forth. And I knew, the next step was to really make a major life change, but there was no, I couldn't maybe get a commitment that was commensurate with that level of life change. So it was going to take more sacrifice and more, effort. And I just sort of felt like, I'm good. And I felt, to your point, like I knew internally, like, hey, I can do this. And no matter the results, I know the level I can get to. And I just felt content with it. And I don't know, it's a weird feeling, man. I hope it doesn't happen to you anytime soon, but it was a weird feeling for me. And, you mentioned the broadcast side. I obviously think that makes it easier, but this is a tough game. It's a rewarding game. I love it to death. I think it's so cool. I've told everyone in the last couple of weeks that's listening out there, that if you're looking at wanting to do this, right, and it's not going to make sense. It's not going to make financial sense. It probably will you'll probably set yourself back a little bit in what you could have done elsewhere, but it's worth it. Absolutely go after it because there's a fulfillment in the chase and, part of the pun chase. And I think it's worth it. So I appreciate, let me say all that, but it's this game. It's definitely a game.
Well, I mean, honestly, man, I kind of feel you because if you talk to me in June of this year or even March of this year, right? Like only had the Indy 500 on the schedule. Nothing was going on. I was like, you know what? I've given everything I've had to try to be in the NTT IndyCar series. Feel like I have done my job when called upon, been on the podium, been on the pole, like had some success. But I was actually I was like, you know what? If I'm not in for the season again, I don't really care because I feel like I've put everything into it. And then sure enough, like a terrible drug addiction, you get this chance to drive this competitive car, and then now you're at the front again and you're beating the crap out of some people that you're like, oh, cool. Like you guys are making 100 times more money than I am because I wasn't making anything. And but it's one of those things that like, it's a terrible addiction, but if it's the right situation, the right time, and I think this 48 situation for you was something that was like, hey, this seemed like the perfect fit for you at the time and some support. And Scott Borchetta is a great believer in young talent and drivers that he's created a lot of opportunities, I would say, for not only musical artists but also young drivers as well.
Yeah, no, he's awesome. And you said it right. It was really a great fit for me because he's one of the first owners I've ever had who valued all the stuff I do off track, right? From the TV side to the podcast to content and that sort of thing. And I told him really early on in the first couple months, I was like, man, it is so refreshing to have an owner who actually values that stuff because we all think it has a value and it should have a value, but there's a lot of teams and owners that just can't see past, what the dollar through the door or, even just the idea of like when the result sheet comes up, whether it's, what they hope for or not. Right. And I think that was really cool for me to have that opportunity to be in a platform and knowing what he's done and the superstars he's created. I was like, hey, if I can just get like a little percentage of that, like, just like a little bit on those coattails of like, hey, what you guys are making stars over here. So yeah, I've learned a lot from him. I feel like I've grown as a person and my content and my delivery in terms of all things off track has been way better because of the people he surrounded me with and just knowing him. So I agree that 100%. But man, I know you're the super sub now. You're the guy.
Which I don't want to be.
I know. We need
involuntary title.
No more sub. We want to be, full time. We want to be solidified, concrete.
Oh man.
If I owned a team, I'd call you.
Oh, thank you, Parker. You're too smart to own a race team. We know that. Chase, I'm going to let you jump in here as well.
Yeah, Parker, we've talked a good bit in our past, and the content side of things is something you're big on. You're a big meme guy, from checking if the rain's coming back by touching water puddles on pit road, things of that nature. I've been watching a lot of different content online lately, and I had to ask you, and I figured you would get a huge kick out of it. There's this account on Instagram, and they have been putting your clips of like you standing on the racetrack where you're like discussing things and talking, but it's like Project Pat. And it's like you're in a rap video and like you're getting it. I think the account's called NASCAR. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. No, I know those guys pretty well. They've come to some races. They are hilarious. Dude, I don't know how they do it. They get those up so quickly. That will be clipped. They just find so many sexual innuendos in the broadcast that are just so amazing, and they put it all together, and we all love it. Like all of us internally in the broadcast think it's the funniest thing ever.
It's great.
And then they do those videos where I do these action adventures, as you're saying, and then they put the rap music over it. And because I have so many hand movements, it works well. And I'm like, I don't even know how they come up with these songs. It's so good. And I keep
you have to have the vocabulary
send it to me.
Music.
Yeah,
like you have to know the music.
What I tell them is that what they don't know is that I'm thinking of those songs as I'm doing those pieces, and it just works out perfectly. So I love it, man. They're hilarious.
Are you going to do this? I think it's time for a real music video. I think it's time for a real music video, a real Parker Kligerman music video.
Man, that would be tough because I have zero musical talent. I can't even hold the beat.
Well, we would just edit it.
It's been tough forever. That is true. We got editing out there. I'm going to call Scott and be like, look, maybe I'm done driving full time. Let's go get in the studio and let's go what we were meant to be brought together for. So
this is what retirement's all about.
He would definitely laugh me out. Yeah. He deals with real talented artists, so I don't think he wants anything to do with my music career.
I think you're selling yourself short.
I appreciate
Speaking
it.
of NBC, though, so I and again, this is going to seem slightly condescending, but I did actually ask Mike Tirico last night to be on the show today to recap some NBC stuff, but I have you instead, also NBC guy, right? So instead of Mike Tirico, who just finished doing Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football, I went with Parker Kligerman to kind of recap NBC's overall, IndyCar package. You've been a part of it. And you're obviously you were a part of NBC many, many times in your career. Can you kind of very proud of what NBC's done? I mean, we are certainly very thankful for NBC. But what were some of your favorite moments of like the IndyCar NBC broadcast kind of history and the aura of what we had with the Peacock?
Yeah, no, first of all, Mike Tirico is the man. So I'm not
great guy.
I would take him anytime over me. He's incredible. I've worked with him a couple times with some of the biggest races that we've done, and he even early on he came up to me and just like, "Hey Parker," like knew my name and everything. I was like, "Well,
nice."
And
I
he's
couldn't
like,
believe that.
He's incredible.
And also, he should never ever respond to my text message. There are probably way more people in his phone that he should respond to first. So I am actually totally fine with that.
No, that is pretty big. That's big time right there. You can name drop all you want on that one. He's amazing. My girlfriend works on the Olympics for NBC, so she worked closely with him over in Paris, and his schedule was insane. The guy was on air for like 14 hours a day and just doing all these different sports or whatever. So he's incredible. But actually, probably my favorite stuff that NBC did for IndyCar was really just the way they presented the Indy 500 and just made it the big event feel that they do so well. And Mike Tirico, I remember maybe it was last year, he did a walk and talk to start the show that was like 4 minutes long through the bricks and out of the pagoda and onto pit road, and he never missed a beat. And there's no teleprompter, nothing.
Legend.
And he seamlessly goes through this massive crowd on the bricks and walks up. And I texted a couple of our executives, and I was like, if that doesn't win an Emmy, I have no idea what does. And I was just like, that was like TV, just like in the TV world, a walk and talk is just the highest level of, I mean, it sounds so rudimentary. It's like, well, they walk and talk? Well, that sounds
It's hard. No, it's hard.
Yeah, but it's difficult if you're doing it for 3 or 4 minutes and there's a crowd around you and you've got certain points you want to hit and that sort of thing. So I thought that was incredible. But overall, that broadcast team did an amazing job. The Renee, who was the producer, became the first woman producer of the Indy 500. She produces the NASCAR and NBC. And the director, Sean Owens, who's a savant in the motorsport directing world. He's considered probably the best there is in the world. They didn't really know IndyCar when they went into it a couple years ago and just did an amazing job. And they loved it. And they said they when we, found out it was going to a different place, it was a very emotional moment for them. And I've talked to them a lot about it, and they just loved IndyCar and how competitive it was and how all the personalities that are in the sport. And I think they really gave it the credits that it deserves. The thing to me though is like when Castroneves won his fourth, right? That
massive
moment, if you go back in some of the things that Sam Flood, who's the executive producer at NBC Sports,
Mark I.
He would, very smart. He would instill in us is like sometimes there's moments you just let it breathe, right? As a commentator, like just let the moment speak for itself. And if you go back and watch that, there's a period of time where they just let the crowd noise, the team celebrating, that sort of thing, just breathe. And you just felt the moment. It was chills in your back, and it's just like, that's classic NBC. What you see on the Olympics, just that ethos runs through the whole the company. And I think that's what they did so well for IndyCar. And, I was sad to see it go. I got to do a little bit of stuff during the Indy 500 month, in terms of practice. I got to be in the booth for the first practice 2 years ago, which was super cool. I sat there with Hinch and Kevin Lee and was like, this is amazing. I'm getting to commentate on something in the Indy 500. You guys are whipping around at 230 miles an hour. And I was just like, this is awesome. So I love that race. I was honored to even have any point or part of being a part of that broadcast in any respect. But I never got to do the Indy 500 because I've always was racing. NBC was always nice to let me go do races on that weekend, whether it's a Coke 600 or an Xfinity race or trucks or whatever. So I never could really commit to doing the Indy 500, and I would have liked to, but obviously I had to go chase the driving thing a little bit. But yeah, no, I think it's been a very fruitful relationship on both sides, and I'm excited to see where it goes next for you guys in terms of being on broadcast all races. I think that's huge in this day and age. There's no doubt about that. And I think with the personalities and the level of competition in the IndyCar series, which I know you harp on a lot, but it's landing on my podcast, Money Lab. By the way, I have a podcast.
Yeah, subscribe.
Yes,
podcast.
Like and subscribe, please.
Yep.
Big podcast.
Yeah,
we talk about all the time how it's, so you look at the timing sheets after a session in the IndyCar series, and it's fractions of a second from 1st to 25th. And you're like, oh my God, that would be so stressful. So I don't know how you do it.
It is very stressful. But speaking of that, that relationship that you have with NBC, I actually find it to be the most perfect thing ever for a person who is trying to maximize where they are, the opportunities, because you are racing on Saturday, commentating on Sunday. I mean, that's like honestly the perfect situation for anyone who, well, first of all, wants to make a better living. And second of all, you're already there, right? So you eliminate some of the expenses sort of for them. But was that awesome to be like, okay, yeah, I know that I'm racing the day before the Cup race or whatever it is, not the main event. Boom, we're still here for the main event, and and you get to work it. Like that seems like it couldn't be. And I actually like how NASCAR has their weekends because, if it's a 3-race weekend, you got Trucks, Xfinity, Cup, it just gives the fans so much to watch, but it also allows people like yourself to work more.
Yeah, well, the weekend ROI goes way up. So the P&L,
yeah, which is what we need. Yeah,
the weekend P&L. Corey LaJoy and I always say that. How's your weekend P&L going? It's like, well, we're double dipping today, so it's great.
Yeah,
it has been a very symbiotic relationship in terms of, for me, just being able to have the FaceTime and to grow my profile, and then also how nice they've been to let me go race and to chase racing. And I told them all at our production meeting this past weekend, I was like, look, for the last 10 years, you guys have all picked up the slack and at times, moved schedules around to let me go race and chase this racing thing. And it's meant the world. And it's really, it takes a huge effort for everyone to do that, but they've all been so respectful and so kind and encouraging to do it. So that's been awesome. And then, in terms of being able to jump on the broadcast the next day after racing, I always just tried to bring one thing, right, that I might have found that because I was on the racetrack, right, that weekend. And actually,
which is huge. Yeah.
Well, that's
a resource that they don't have or they didn't have.
Exactly. Well, this past weekend, it actually once again happened. It happens most of them, but this weekend, the dog leg, the shortcut there at Phoenix that we use, it became apparent that on the exit portion of it, there was this huge bump that's developed, like massive. And I hit it a couple times in my Xfinity car. I thought it destroyed our car. And so we got into the Cup race and in our production meeting, I said, hey guys, it's like, this might be a topic because those Cup cars haven't really run down there yet, that sort of thing. And sure enough, we get going, and in the early portion of the race, you got Ty Gibbs who wrecks through there. You got cars jumping around, deciding not to go down there. And Jeff Burton's like, well, Parker Kligerman was telling us in the production meeting, there's a bump down there now. And I was like, yeah, it's what I felt. So that's just that one thing that the viewers hopefully get something more. NBC gets something unique, and for me, I get the chance to just to be at the racetrack and be in front of everyone. So it's worked for sure, and it has been cool. I would tell you the craziest times I've had though was a couple years ago during COVID. I would race trucks and then do the Cup broadcast, and a couple times I did where I raced trucks and then literally changed my shirt, like got done racing, just changed, didn't shower, put a hat on, and went and did the broadcast. And those were some really long days. That wasn't like the weekend P&L. That was like a Saturday, Sunday P&L. Sunday P&L that was just over a little too much.
That's maximum ROI though, and I respect what you got going on. Chase, go ahead here.
Yeah, so going back to, you were talking a little bit about, the Indy 500, wanting to do some more stuff with that. One thing that I learned about you in the past that I wasn't aware of at all was your love for open wheel racing. So you actually started out as a big Formula One fan, and you've always kind of had that itch in you. Now that retirement's here, can you honestly say whether you've thought about possibly pursuing any type of short run opportunities in an open wheel car, whether it be, there's a lot of different types out there. So has that been something that's been on your mind, something that you've been wanting to pursue?
Not open wheel. I did start in open wheel. I actually, Connor, my story. I kicked Rossi's butt for
yeah.
He doesn't like to bring it up.
It's written history. Yeah,
it's out there.
History. It's
out
in the
there.
books. Yeah,
in Formula TR, Formula Renault. Took it to him, just putting it out there. So that's where I started because I did want to go the open wheel path. I have been F1 was my first love. Then I fell in love with the IndyCar and Champ Car World Series back in the early 2000s. Kart to me was just the coolest thing ever. Those cars, 1,000 horsepower.
Great sounding engines. We had a big discussion about it.
God. Yep. I got to sit in one of those. Scott owned some of those late 90s cars, and I got to sit in one at the shop in Nashville a couple months ago. And I just sat there, and the tires are so huge. I was like, God, these were so cool. Like, they were just psychos. It was such an epic era. I can watch those videos all day long. But I can't remember where I was going with this. Oh, in terms of driving them, no. I open wheel wise, I'd say that time has passed for me. It's a young man's game, where you got to be like Connor, who's got so much experience, so you can stay in it and whatever. I don't see myself making that transition, but I am trying to do a little bit of sports cars, endurance racing. That's been a bucket list for me. So I feel this week, hopefully, we'll get this done to be able to race in the Rolex this year for the first time. So that will be huge for me.
Yeah. All right.
I'm pretty excited about that. So I'd love to go do some of those. I'd actually like to go race, I guess this is open wheel, but modifieds. I've always wanted to do that. There's some Wednesday shows up in Connecticut at Thompson I've always wanted to dip into or something. So I'd like to dabble in that. I just like to experience motorsports. This sport is so diverse, and it comes in so many shapes, forms, and sizes, and sounds and smells that it's, there's a lot of different ways to experience it, and I'd like to go do that. But I'm just a fan on the open wheel side now. I'll leave it to the professionals like Connor and I can just sort of make fun of you and all you guys and meme style stuff when you make.
I love that.
When you mess up.
And honestly, please do. I hope I am there to make fun of. Honestly, that would
I'll
be
on the couch
news.
Drinking and throwing beer cans at the TV screen. So
at least you'd be watching, and that's what we need. We need viewers.
One other thing that I did want to ask you too, Parker, is this is something we haven't really got a lot of.
That was the time.
It's time. It's time for it. What are your thoughts on the new NASCAR EV series that's coming up? There's been a lot of talk about, EV racing. I mean, obviously Formula E is out there, but I haven't really got to ask anybody inside the industry their thoughts on it yet. What kind of a feeling do you have about it, and how much do you actually know about the program?
I don't know too much about the potential of a series. I've seen the car up close and I think it's pretty cool. They had it this past weekend at Phoenix. They had it pitted right next to us in Chicago, which was awesome. So I got to speak to some of those people and the amount of horsepower it makes. You mentioned Formula E. When that first came around, I went to one of the first races in Brooklyn, and it was definitely a marketing exercise that felt
I was
a
there
little
too.
bit.
Were we there the same weekend or no?
We probably were.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was just a media guy. I think you drove one that weekend.
I did. I drove their little test evaluation car.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't get invited, but
as well, that's a shame on them.
I did think it was a bit of marketing exercise, but it's become a badass series, and the cars are cool, and they have really competitive racing. I like watching it, so I think it has a place in the motorsports world. I think electric has a place in the motorsports world, but I believe personally, just when I look at the top levels of motorsports, IndyCar, NASCAR Cup Series, F1, I believe the internal combustion engine has to be a priority for as long as possible. And I think it has a longer life than anyone truly knows or believes because of things like e-fuels that are coming around. There's ways to do it. And the last thing, or the thing I always harp on, is horses have not been a viable form of transportation in over 125 years, and yet people still race them. So I think for the top levels, having internal combustion engine has to be a priority. It has to be a part of it. It's just a part of the experience. It is what makes motorsports. I think electric has a place, but in terms of being the dominant form of motorsport, no, I don't think it has that possibility.
I agree. I don't. Oh, you could talk about it for hours. I mean, it's cool. Like Formula E, like is cool, and like I have a ton of friends that are racing there. I never see it on television, but they're making 10 times the salary that anyone in IndyCar is, and I'm like, how is that possible? Like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I saw the see a bunch of celebrities that show up there, and I'm like, yes, they have all these numbers about their TV audiences, and I'm like, you guys are on like CBS Sports HQ at 4 a.m. Like, how are you getting 12 billion people watching it? I don't understand it. It's not that I don't believe it. I don't understand it because I watch the racing and it's a very Mickey Mouse. It's like, okay, no one's doing anything because we're all saving energy. And maybe it's cool, like as a fun thing to watch. And there's a lot of really good drivers in it, but you have to have the sound, the length of the race, the refueling, the strategy. I mean, there's no strategy in electric racing. It's just don't run out of battery.
Don't run out of battery. Yeah.
And so, the
cars seem kind of fast though. I mean, at Portland,
they do.
They were doing almost like 200 miles an hour down the straightaway or some shit. I was like, what?
No, they were not.
It was like 180. I don't know. They said 180 or something.
I think that's kilometers.
Maybe it was kilometers.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kilometers.
I thought it had like. Well, what do they got now? I mean, they can't.
I don't know. Actually, I cannot be the judge because I do not know.
Well, I thought the lap times were really fast, but they're very quick. The NASCAR one, I believe they said to me, like well over 1,000 horsepower is the potential of what that thing can do at any time. So it's just that part's cool. Like I get that, and that's awesome.
They go.
But it has its place, and I think it's like Formula E. Okay, that's the top level of electric racing. There you go.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a different, because it like goes back to motorsports. Motorsports is a very diverse sport in all its shapes, forms, and sizes, and it's just another addition to that. But yeah, like the top series, we got to keep the internal combustion engine because it's
maybe
just,
that'll be a good place
integral.
to put Winston Cup points is in the EV series, the NASCAR EV series.
Yeah, no, you opened up a whole can of worms now.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about we're going to talk about it on our show today a little bit. I have some opinions, but I want to get your opinion. Well, no, I want to get your opinion on how we fix IndyCar. There's a lot of things that are going on, and currently, like when you look at the landscape, there is zilch going on in the IndyCar world. Not a single driver is posted on social media either. It's like everyone's dead. I don't know where everyone went. But
big tired guys.
Like half the field's last Instagram post was the day after the Nashville race. And I'm like, okay, like how do we maintain a fan base like that? I don't understand it. And all this hype has been going on with Formula One. It's a great championship battle. You know, NASCAR, everyone's arguing every single day, which again, positive or negative, who knows? But there's still a lot of chatter. And like, we're not even allowed to test anymore either. So like, there's like one test day next week, which is only for evaluation drivers. It's not any drivers that are in the series. And like, if you're actually a full-time driver, you're not running until February. So,
yep.
I mean, does there need to be more? Because even next year, the season is more condensed, right? We have 8 every race on Fox. Very excited about that. And I think everyone is very optimistic. But my gosh, is there a long time? And you know how short people's attention spans are. So how do we fix it? Or what's the strategy? Because you're smart, you know the media, so you have a podcast. That means that you probably know a lot, right? Or at least
well, it doesn't mean I know anything. Anyone can have a podcast these days. Look at you guys.
A bunch of clowns. Yeah. I did my podcast locked out of my house last week. So,
gallon jugs.
Yeah,
man, that is. I think for IndyCar, there's a couple things that I've always felt that it has that nothing else has. There's first and foremost, it is the Indy 500 and the speed of the Indy 500 and what you guys do there. That's just so above and beyond almost every form of motorsport. And I've always had a massive respect for the Indy 500, and I think everyone does. And you look at Kyle Larson coming to do it this year. I mean, he literally put his season in jeopardy to come run the Indy 500. That's how important it is. Like, his main job, they were like, no, we're doing this. And I think that is something that is so powerful that, that IndyCar has, that even, I know F1 has Monaco or whatever, but it's like, They don't.
But that's not even a race
that.
anymore.
No, they don't have that. And the Indy 500 is the best show, and I think actually the most natural best show in all of motorsports. I've said this a million times. Is Indy 500 qualifying. To me, that is the coolest thing there is in motorsports. It's the fastest, most daredevil form of racing and competing against each other that there is, with the highest pressure. And you got, it's the perfect mix of insane speed, grip limited, the pressure, the prestige of it all. It's just like the crowd, the way that it's been broadcasted the last years is so amazing. And so I just think that is a something, once again, that only IndyCar has. With that, I know that, the season being shorter is tough, and that's probably, if you were to talk to marketing executives, that sort of thing, they'd be like, no, you want to run all the time and you want to run as much as you can. Maybe there's a way to lean into that a little bit, right? It works for the NFL somehow. They only have, what are they at, like 16 or 17 weekends, 17 weekends, 18 weekends now? I don't know. But anyway, they've always had a short season. There's ways to make that work. I think the thing, though, for IndyCar is to continually lean into what it has that others don't, right? And that's what I think they've done for many years. In terms of, stars, you've got Pato, who's basically like a movie star down there with that mall appearance, which Hinch and I were texting about it because I was like, this is insane, crazy, dude. Like, this guy, he's a global superstar. And then there's the competitiveness
my
of the racing.
Thing about Pato is going to be our Caitlin Clark. I mean, Caitlin Clark brought... do you think that's valid, or is it? I mean,
why not?
Caitlin Clark literally brought the WNBA and then literally almost at a different universe, like the Milky Way. Nope, left that behind. We went to a new one. Like, it's crazy.
Stars are important. I mean, we have some funny sayings in TV, which is like people over parts, stars and cars. Like, it's all about stars. Stars do bring eyeballs. That is very, very important, of which there is great personalities and big stars in IndyCar. I think it really, though, comes down to is just finding the ways to lean into what IndyCar has that others don't. And that's really going to be the biggest thing. For NASCAR, right? To me, NASCAR is the entertainment product of motorsports. It is designed to create the max amount of entertainment, whether that means, that means maybe at the loss of what people would consider natural or legitimate, that sort of thing. It doesn't matter. It's about entertainment. It's about the fact that it's going to be, for IndyCar, I don't know if that would be the right path, right? I think it's more a natural form of racing. Therefore they got to continue that and lean into it. I think there's probably ways to take from other motorsports in terms of the entertainment value, in terms maybe a championship design and that sort of stuff that could make that, with a shorter condensed season, it always ends up in a very close title battle, right? That sort of thing in the last race. I think that could be an option for sure. And then I think it's having people like Scott, who was the promoter of the last race, for the championship race, who leans in and, and markets and puts it out there like that. It takes a village to do this sort of thing and to market these things and to get people to want to show up. So they've got all that. The ingredients are there, right? Now you hope that if it's all put together and put in front of people, it continually gets more and more people talking about it and that sort of thing. I think also separating from F1 in some respects, right? And sort of saying, hey, like that's that form, but we're the top form of this. It's open wheel cars that go far faster than an F1 car will ever go when you're at the Indy 500, right? Like leaning into that sort of thing. So it's a tough question, though. I know there's been many, many smart people over the last 2 decades who have tried to solve this equation. It's continually been the discussion, right? And to be honest, but personally, I watch it all. So I'm one of the fans, and I consistently ask the same question as to how something so competitive, so full of cool cars and high speeds doesn't maybe garner more attention. But
it almost doesn't make sense.
Sometimes you just got to keep going, right?
Yeah, like as a race fan, like as someone, I find myself saying this after every weekend. I mean, not this year because we got shifted to like MSNBC and CNBC like 14 times.
No, a lot of financial racing happening.
But that's part of the business, right? That's part of the business. If we were like as powerful as NASCAR, people would still go and watch it, right? It doesn't matter what channel NASCAR's on. People are going to go find it. That's why they're like, oh, no one knows where the CW is. I'm like, guess what? Everyone found it for Xfinity. You know what I mean? Like, there's still people to watch. Man.
That blew me
crazy.
away. That blew me away. The ratings that they've gotten on the Xfinity Series has been just like, what? How did that? This is incredible. Like it was double probably what most people expected.
Yeah,
and I don't know.
3 years of hype build up, man.
Yeah,
We also have. I believe that IndyCar needs to break through the ceiling of. We have a very great dedicated fan base, right? But even as a podcaster, right, I see the audience. I see like, okay, here's our listenership. Here's this what it is. And I kind of talk to Hinch about, their podcast too. And like, I think there's a certain amount of people that always tune in to find out more about IndyCar. But that number needs to be doubled because anything NASCAR on this podcast is always listened to more. Anything NASCAR, like that's why Dale Earnhardt Jr. has a very successful podcast. That's why they have like 8 podcasts over at the Dirty Mo Media Network now, because NASCAR fans are more, there's just more of them who want to pay attention to the day-to-day. And I believe when you break through that, it's like always when you looked at an IndyCar ratings number, you knew no matter what, we're probably going to get at least 200,000 people to watch, which is a disgusting number. But those 200,000 people, boy, are we thankful for you, and we love that. But you need that
proud.
like low number.
You don't want to shit on your base right now.
No, but that's the thing is like we're very thankful for that, but we need that to be 1 million. You know what I mean? And I don't know why when the product is so good, because again, the product has never been the problem. I feel like I've said that 1,000 times on this show, but like when I listen to Pardon My Take, Barstool Sports Podcast, I hear an ad for the NASCAR race, right? I hear an ad that there's a NASCAR race going on. You see it. Do you think it's as simple? Because I believe that it almost is this simple, but just forcing it with cash into a more mainstream type ad revenue system or ad system.
Well,
it works.
Is in racing, we love to say, we love to think things can be solved with cubic dollars.
Oh yeah,
so,
everything's money. Yeah,
everything's money.
The more money, the more speed.
Yep. How fast you want to go, how much you want to spend, as Roger Penske would say. So I think, that's probably the easiest way, right? But you've got to have the base set up there. You've got to have the ways to capture them and the place, the consistency of where it's at. I think you're going to have that going forward. And so I don't know. I would say what they've done with the newest TV deal to me was a really, really smart move in terms of just saying, we're going to be in front of the highest distribution possible at the, probably at the detriment of the largest financial number they could get. And in doing so, it to me is like, this is the play, right? And now the product is there. It's going to have a more consistent possibility of getting a larger audience, getting a partner like that will, promote it. I mean, NBC did obviously a lot of times with the NASCAR stuff. I remember some of the best job. Well, some of the best,
the Kentucky Derby too. Great little coagulation there.
But the thing I always loved is when we really figured out how to have where like a Cup race would lead into an IndyCar race, right?
Massive.
Or it was always I love that, or vice versa. And so I always thought that was super cool. The thing that most annoys me in motorsports is when F1, IndyCar, and NASCAR are all racing at the same time.
Oh, it's the dumbest thing in the history of sport.
That's only a few weeks out of the year, though.
But it still bothers me.
Yeah, but still, bothers me. There's way less weekends for us. Yeah, I mean, it's
because you like cars going in circles.
Gets wedged in a weird way. Like this year, we saw like some races where it was supposed to go from NASCAR to IndyCar, and like something would happen to where they would have to push the IndyCar race to another channel because they were finishing up Xfinity. That happened a little bit more this year too, but. Just to like dive into this, like this is another perspective that I see too that I think is very valid. When you look at, we talk about the base, right? You talk about that base buildup for IndyCar. NASCAR had the 90s, a consistent solid block of just some of the most exciting, amazing things with stars like Earnhardt, Gordon, and then you had just this flood of fans that were rivaling the NFL. IndyCar has had a lot of these small stretches, but then it would break. And then another stretch, like 96 happens, the split happens. There's these little breaks like that over time. And I feel like IndyCar is at a point now to where like it's still so early. Like 2008 was when IndyCar kind of came back together, right?
Yep.
So it's still so young. Like we are in a base building period, in my opinion. And this can be that floor. As long as we can stretch this out and provide consistency over a good many years, we can see by 2030, in the 2030, 2040 area, I feel like that's when you could have that huge incline, because you just have to have that consistency there blocked up over time. And I feel like that's what carries NASCAR and F1.
My God, I've not thought about 2030 yet. That's
it
just blew my mind. By the way, Chase,
carried F1.
My brain is
Netflix got F1.
I'll say,
so,
you want to know how much? You want to know how much of a nerd I am about American oatmeal racing? In my senior year of high school, my term paper, I wrote it on the split and how it.
There you go.
How it basically hurt American oatmeal racing in
the killer
general sports lexicon, and how it allowed.
We have
NASCAR
not recovered
to
from it.
No, and I truly think Chase has a great point, because it really, what you just said, Connor, like that is going to take, that was decades lost, and generation, maybe an entire generation lost with that whole split. And it has become, I think, one of the biggest lessons that all sports use, as when they get into these discussions of, over money and power and that sort of thing. Everyone goes, whoa, don't do what IndyCar did, right? Because everyone saw how big a detriment that was to the growth. So that is going to take time, and it's going to continue to take time. But, if the product is there, once again, and if it's displayed consistently to a large audience, you just hope that sort of takes hold, right? And I don't know, there's other, like, if IndyCar had the chance to do things that would maybe separate it from other forms of motorsports, maybe it's like you end up changing the way drivers are picked to be in the cars or something, stuff like that. That's just sort of like a flyer to say we got to do something crazy. I don't know.
I've already done that.
Yeah, okay. The groundbreaking movement.
We've already been through. We tried to make that happen. Yeah, no. So anyway, I'm just shooting off the hip here and speaking out loud. But I'm just saying, like, that's the sort of stuff. Yeah, you got to do something.
I've taken up a lot of your time already. I know I said it would be a quick appearance. That was a lie, apparently.
But I have one more thing.
You know what? I can't trust you. I can't.
Man, we're just trying to generate good clips. It's a good clip show.
It's all about the clips.
I truly believe we're in a weird era of sport that if you somehow get the internet just to only talk about clips of your sport, or there's like wild stuff, because for a long time, and this is, I believe, it's just a weird era. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as the entire internet is talking about it, someone's going to go find it. Because if it's the same thing with like Caitlin Clark clips, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, this is the craziest thing ever. Like, sometimes it might not have been the greatest game or whatever it is, but everyone still talked about Caitlin Clark because it was cool to talk about Caitlin Clark as well. And obviously, supreme athlete. But like when everyone is talking about NASCAR chaos, everyone is talking about NASCAR chaos. You know what I mean? Or in Formula One, you had a Netflix show. The entire world is shut down. No one had anything to do. And the entire internet was encapsulated by a sport that really, there's not a lot of racing in. But boy, do we have cool boats. You know what I mean? So, like, it's one of those things that I think we need that moment. We need that viral moment. Like the Indy 500 is it as an event, right? It gets 7 million more people viewing it than any other race.
Yeah.
But like, we need that moment, or like a month in time, to where every clip that we talk about, or every clip, is either force-fed to people, and you just have to take over the internet. You're like, why are we not watching?
Push it down their throats.
Pay for it. I don't care what it is. You could buy anything on the internet. You could shove it down everything you swipe through on Instagram. And guess what? IndyCar's racing this weekend. I don't know. Maybe that's it.
I can tell your algorithm is heavily Caitlin Clark. I don't think we
have
I'm from Indiana.
That's what it is. You're Indiana. That's what it is.
I don't get any of this. Is real, dude. The Indiana bubble is so real.
I mean, it's so true though. The WNBA all of a sudden has the more people watching it than NFL games. Like it's absurd. And honestly, like let's be real. The ratings were quite low, I would say, in the range of professional sports, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing against the WNBA, but they got the spark. And maybe that spark now creates an incredible amount of careers for so many more athletes, right?
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I am not disagreeing with you. I don't have the answer, unfortunately.
No, I know.
And if I did, I probably would call RP. If I did, I'd probably call RP and be like, "What's it worth to you?" I've got the answer.
But do you think there's power there? Like, do you think, you know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, you know what?
Yes. All
of a sudden, I logged onto the Twitter or the X and the Instagram, and it's like, well, shoot, there's a bunch more about IndyCar. Like, what happened here? Maybe,
well, that theory is kind of what's driven NASCAR into the where it is now with the format we have with playoffs and that sort of thing, because it drives those clippable moments, right? And I actually was sitting with Tim Clark, who's the head of NASCAR Digital, at a conference in New York a month or two ago, and he was talking about how when he came into the sport, he realized, well, wait, this isn't a clippable sport because there's long stretches of time nothing happens, right?
Yeah. 396 laps where nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Cars go in circles. Like that is definitely a thing that motorsports has to work through, is to find those ways to get into the clip culture and, to be a meme culture and that sort of thing, because it is difficult. The NBA is the ultimate clippable sport. The NFL is the ultimate clippable sport. It's here's a big moment, a pass, a touchdown, boom. Those happen 5-6 times a game. Here's a bunch of clips. Here you go, right? Here's an amazing tackle. Like we have passes, but sometimes they look mundane unless you know the situation of what just happened, right? But crashes are always great clippable content, of course.
The strategy is just so foolproof.
Well, strategy is really, I find that hard as hell to clip, because it's like, try to explain how strategy is unfolding in a 30-second clip is a very,
I promise
very
you, this driver's going 80% on the throttle only to save the rear tire so he can be 2 laps longer. It's very hard.
And now they're trying to stretch fuel by a lap and a half. So here he is going 50% throttle, and how are they doing that? Well, he's lifting here, and it's like, oh God, what just happened? You lose the audience, they fall asleep. So it's definitely, it's not, motorsports is unique in that it doesn't fit the template of stick and ball, but it's also what makes it great, right? And that's why it is something that can get the amount of viewership it does. And, when NFL is still going, people still watch cars go in circles in NASCAR. And
absolutely.
Even when IndyCar is still going. And I will say this, the reason I talked about why I hate seeing all the motorsports racing at the same time occasionally is that, to me, they're not competitors. Our competitors are NFL, NBA, MLB,
I
right?
agree.
And therefore, if you say you're an F1 fan, you like cars going in circles like that. Hey, we got more cars going in circles over here. We got cars going in circles this way over here. Like, if we can convince you to like cars going in circles, I've got a hell of a lot better chance of making you watch all the different cars go in circles than I do, an NBA fan who just suddenly can be forced to watch cars go in circles. Like, that's a tough one. So I think that the motorsports working together, which they have, when Kyle Larson does the Indy 500 and the Coke 600, and that brings NASCAR fans to watch, it's like that stuff matters and it works. And so really harnessing that is cool. I loved when we did the combo NASCAR IndyCar race. That was badass. I thought it was amazing,
dude. Fantastic.
It was great. That was so cool. I was so proud of NASCAR to do that, and IndyCar to come together and to say, like, hey, let's put our differences aside and let's do something cool for all motorsport fans. I just thought that was amazing. So more of that stuff I'd like to see.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going to let you go here because we've already taken up far too much of your time.
I'm never going to get off this podcast.
No, let's not hate each other here, because there's enough of that on the internet. I tried to fight an account that hated you the other day after the Roval, and boy, did I get into it.
No, you and my sister. My sister, she was all over Twitter that day. She was trying to. Yeah.
Dude, that whole Roval thing, I felt it in my heart, and it made me hurt so bad that I saw these dummies. And again, we're going to have people on the internet that hate everything no matter what, which is fine. And that is kind of your point. I wish more people could watch all the motorsports. I don't know why we all have to be so, like, there's a lot of fans that are just like defensive of their area. And it's like, well, hey guys, you guys like racing. So like, it's okay to watch all, I've said it so many times on this podcast. It's actually okay to watch all the racing that you want, or that you might be interested in, or to learn something new. Maybe watching another motorsport might help the motorsport that you prefer better. I say it all the time, because there are people that are like, I'm an F1 fan, can't watch NASCAR, can't watch IndyCar, a bunch of poor people. And it's like, what? like what are
That's me.
How are we, what are we doing? Like, why?
I'm with you. I don't get it. Like, and it's so funny because the competitors and everyone in it has such respect for each other. But then for some reason, the fan base has become so siloed, and you're just
F1 fans will look at a NASCAR driver and be like, "Oh my god, dude, you race how many races a year?" Like they have mad respect. It's insane. You saw that?
No, they do not, Chase. They do not.
The fans do not. The drivers.
Not at all. I'm saying drivers. They had that video with like Logano, Sainz, and Leclerc. Like they were playing poker, and they were just talking about it last year. That was one of the greatest clips ever because you get to see these drivers talking together, and you realize like, oh, the drivers actually have mad respect for each other in multiple series. So you would think
and
over
the fans
time,
who idolize these,
it is fun to
the
beef
fans
with
who
other
idolize
series.
these drivers are like, they must be stupid. This is actually how we should think. And I'm like, that's crazy. I don't get it. Listen to the guy that you love so much say that he respects this level of the sport because we could all succeed. And maybe we all continue to race for many years into the future. Kligerman, thank you for being here.
Well, I'd like to see the Alex Palou, Kyle Larson, Max Verstappen Battle Royale. Let's make it. Let's make that. That's the day it all comes together. That day. Thank you for having me, guys.
That's when motorsports breaks the internet.
Two Red Bull F1 cars that are prepared the same.
Yep.
2 McLaren Indy cars, 2 Hendrick Cup cars, whatever it is. That's
the way to do it.
Line them up.
I love it.
Get a couple drivers, but we're gonna rotate them in anyway. It'll never happen, but it was fun.
Olympics.
It was a fun idea.
Now that you've held me here this long, I do have to say I just found out I'm in the top 5 for most popular driver in the Xfinity Series voting. 2 more weeks to go. I'd like to win this thing.
Is this a sympathy vote? Is this a sympathy vote?
I'm going for the sympathy vote.
Vote for him.
If you feel sad about the Charlotte Roval, then the one thing that can fix it is your vote for most popular driver in the Xfinity Series. Please. I'll take it.
I want a sympathy vote as well. I was the most popular driver in IndyCar 2017.
I love that.
And that's because I got fired right afterwards unjustly. And everyone felt bad for me, so I showed up to say be unemployed, and they gave me this little trophy behind me to make me feel better about myself. Yeah. And again, appreciate the fans that voted. Obviously, IndyCar doesn't do that anymore because everyone was like, no shot Alex Rossi won it the next year, but turns out you could do all kinds of weird internet voting things. I don't know. Alex Rossi, fan favorite.
I love it. He's fun. So
anyway, Parker, I appreciate you, man. This was a great conversation. I hope people enjoy it. Maybe because you're a NASCAR guy, we might get some more viewership this week. So thank you. I'll send you the YouTube revenue share. Just kidding.
Thank
I won't.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, thank you for sure.
Thank you guys. Have a good one. And
Later,
thanks for taking all my time. I'll be sending the bill accordingly.
Okay. Yeah. Invoice Dale Earnhardt Jr.
He's got it. Peace.
Yeah. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Parker. I think he's got a great voice for television. He's got a great mind for the sport, and I hope you enjoyed that. So we're going to continue to do some shows as we get into the winter here. Next week, we mentioned Louis Foster is going to be on. Louis Foster. We're going to ask him how to pronounce his name, just so we respect the sport and respect the name of the game. And we're going to take Thanksgiving week off. So we're going to take the Thanksgiving week off, and then we're going to come back in December. And then it's kind of going to be a week on, week off type scenario. So we don't fully fall out of your queue in the podcast game. But obviously, there's not a ton to talk about. There might be more to talk about if we have a week off because, things aren't happening as often as normal. So that's kind of the schedule for now. But before we close out the show, we have a very, very famous segment. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but if it's your first time here, welcome to the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week.
The greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. Who will make up the field?
This week, we found a very special Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week because we went with a year where a lot of the drivers are probably still alive. Most of them. Some of them. Let's go with most. And that year is the 1998 Indianapolis 500. The 1998 Indy 500 won by Eddie Cheever Jr. in the Rachel's Potato Chips car. Not sure if you've heard of those before, Chase, but the Rachel's Potato Chip Special might have been one of the ugliest cars to ever win the Indy 500. Can someone know?
Nice.
Maybe one of the ugliest cars to ever win the Indy 500. Potentially.
Rachel's potato chips.
Rachel's potato chips.
Rachel.
Steve Knapp finished on the podium this race, third place in the Indy 500. But we are going to go with a driver who, again, I recognize this name, but I think it qualifies as a perfect random Indy 500 driver because I was like, I have not heard this name in a while, and maybe other people don't know about this name. And again, I don't want to pronounce this name wrong. There is going to be a lot of IndyCar purists who are probably going to want to punch me in the throat for not maybe knowing this, but Andy Michner finished 8th. Andy Michner or Michner, I'm not sure. Let's go with Michner right now. Michner. Andy Michner finished 8th in the Indy 500 in 1998. This is obviously a bit of a controversial time period in IndyCar. We have a couple different names you will recognize. Obviously, Tony Stewart finished last in this race. A bit of an issue there. But let's read a little bit about Andy. So Andy is, thankfully, still alive as far as we know. He's a Michigan man, born in Ann Arbor. And he also drove in the NASCAR Truck Series and the Busch Series. So also a NASCAR guy. And he's the current, and now again, this is Wikipedia. We don't know if this is true or not. Current record holder of the world's fastest sprint car race at a United States Auto Club, USAC, event in Phoenix, Arizona at 136 miles an hour in 1996. That sounds psychotic, honestly. Michner finished twice a runner-up to NASCAR's Tony Stewart in some USAC competition, which is really cool. And he passed his Indy 500 rookie orientation program in 1996, but he decided not to qualify for the race. That's interesting. In 1996 and 97, Michner ran a partial season in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series as a Chevrolet development driver. That's interesting. And then did his first Indy 500 in 1998 with a career best of 8th place. So that's pretty cool. Wow, what a run. And
I'm
it looks
looking
like,
at
honestly,
photos.
No, go ahead. I think this was his only Indy 500. If I'm looking at it correctly, it looked like he did not qualify in 1999, and then in 2000 he withdrew or something happened. So yeah, maybe his only Indy 500. So that's really interesting.
He's got big James Bond villain vibes. I don't know if you're looking at the same photo that I am.
I'm seeing the same photo, yeah.
You know, he's kind of got that mean look. Like he's definitely curling up that eyebrow underneath those shades. He's got like 007 villain vibes. It almost looks like he's wearing a turtleneck too, so that definitely helps. I like it.
That's wild.
I like him, dude. He's got a look to him, dude.
Yeah, so in 99, he tried to qualify for Bird Racing, which is actually, they were my sponsor my rookie year, but failed to make the field due to rain. And then he was named to a Logan Racing entry for 2 races in 2000, but the car did not appear at either race. So not sure what happened there. If it just
an Oldsmobile guy,
the money
too,
didn't show up. The money didn't show up.
I like
so
that.
So again, connected to Bird Racing there, who the Bird family has supported me in the past, so that's really cool. But I've definitely heard that name before and thought it was worth mentioning. So very, very cool. With that, we come to the end of the program. So we appreciate you guys listening. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast feeds. Do whatever you got to do. Share the show with a friend. It's on you. Remember, when we get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, we're going to give away something sweet. But you have to be subscribed to the channel to win that sweet giveaway item. Subscribe to the channel. Leave some comments on there. And remember, when it's 10,000 subscribers, we're giving away something sweet. So that's it for us. We'll talk to you next week on Speed Street. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.